This is your tech news briefing for Tuesday, November 29th. I'm Zoe Thomas for the Wall Street Journal. Last year, Facebook parent Meta began releasing quarterly reports on widely viewed content, basically summaries of the top 20 posts that were viewed most on its platform. The goal was to show the range of content going viral on Facebook. What it ended up showing was that virtually all of the top-ranked content was spammy, over-sexualized, or generally what the company classified as regrettable. Not only was it an embarrassment for the company executives, according to sources and documents reviewed by the Wall Street Journal, it also threatened to throw off Facebook's plans to change users' news feeds. The company got to work, and the latest report released last week shows only one of the top 20 posts qualified as engagement bait. So how did Facebook deal with the problem? And what can other social media platforms learn from its efforts? Joining us to discuss this is our technology reporter, Jeff Horwitz. So Jeff, what kind of content are we talking about when Facebook said it had too much, quote, regrettable content on people's feeds?
So this is a definitional issue in that regrettable, as it was originally conceived of by the company, was like engagement bait, things that violated the rules. It was, I think, a fairly restrictive definition, stuff they didn't want at the top of the platform. So they were moving to adopt Reels, which is a short-form video product. And instead of seeing things that were reshared by people you knew from pages so much, they were going to be directly recommending entertaining videos. It's very much like TikTok. And some of the things I think that they had initially assumed, which is that the kind of low quality content, things that have bad lighting or like unclear what's going on, people filming a video on a TV screen, things that just look terrible as well as are quote unquote gross or a waste of time. Those things weren't captured by their initial definition of regrettable. And so they had to expand it.
How did all this content come to, be at the top of users' feed on Facebook?
So all of it really thrived in the ecosystem Facebook set up, right? Which is that the distribution of content is governed by how people engage with it. If nobody is liking, sharing it, commenting on it, it's not going to go anywhere on the platform. And what the company has, I think, been coming to conclude in the last few years, and certainly is present in this work, is that maybe just because you get a rise out of people and get a response doesn't mean they actually want the content in question. And so there was a concern that, in particular with Reels, that the content quality was going to be really a problem. One of the things I think that was a big focus was quote unquote aggression. And that was videos of people fighting, whether like physically in a Walmart or screaming at each other on the street or what have you. Videos of people being angry and nasty to each other really did well. And they had to figure out how to address that and make sure that that wasn't going to be a lot of what was in there.
And Facebook really had to think about that because it's focused on making this pivot to Reels, its short-form video where it's competing against TikTok, right?
Exactly. For a number of years, the company's position on content quality was, look, like we don't get to choose what people like. Whatever rises to the top represents the people's choice, was kind of the attitude about this internally. And it turns out that may have been a little bit misplaced, and particularly when it came to something that was more like TikTok, which is Reels, I don't think the company was looking forward to being responsible for those recommendations, if that makes sense. Like, this wasn't stuff that someone's friends had liked. This was just sort of Facebook saying, hey, you should check out this content. And then it would be a whole bunch of fight videos.
All right, so let's talk about Facebook's reaction to this. What has it done to try and remove this kind of content from going viral?
So at the beginning of this year, the company put together a content quality war room, which was product and design and integrity, which is kind of the user safety division, all working together to try to define what makes for a garbage video and post, and to figure out how to implement that and code that into Facebook's systems. So trying to prevent the worst type of content from getting to the top, basically.
And how do we know this?
So that all came from internal documents. I think the company has sort of walked a line between wanting to acknowledge that content quality on Facebook is a priority and that there have been some improvements, and also not wanting to acknowledge how bad the problem was, right? So Facebook did release its widely viewed content report. Almost all the content on it is just fine. Very little engagement bait. It's nothing particularly scandalous or awful. The thing they left out of that public announcement, which they did acknowledge internally in some of the documents I've seen, was that pretty much all of it, like literally 100% of the content in the top 20 posts from a year ago was low quality or regrettable.
We've been having a lot of conversations on this show. A lot of people have been talking more widely about social media content and content moderation. Is there anything that other platforms or even Facebook itself could learn from this experience?
Yeah. Over a number of years, Facebook has had to rethink its initial position that people engage with was what they wanted. That was always the company's assumption, that intervening would be biased. Because if something was getting reshared broadly, that must mean that people really wanted to see it. And I think time and time again, the company saw examples. It was kind of embarrassed by what was at the top of the chart. And over time, I think it started developing metrics for what users valued. And it turns out that what users reacted to wasn't the same thing that what users valued. And so I think when we were looking at, say, Twitter and Elon Musk right now, the whole idea of, I want this to be a platform for free speech, and I want it to be something that's newsworthy and reliable and trustworthy. All of those things, it doesn't just happen on its own. It seems like what Facebook's learned is that you have to go into this stuff with some level of values, not whether it's, whether one should or shouldn't be able to say a particular thing, but just like that you can't use sort of spammy content and engagement tricks to beat the algorithm and get to the top. You have to do something to protect yourself against that.
All right, that's our reporter, Jeff Horwitz. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us.
Certainly. Thank you for having me.
And that's it for today's Tech News Briefing. If you're looking for more tech stories, check out our website, WSJ.com. I'm Zoe Thomas for the Wall Street Journal. Thanks for listening.